good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our Public Safety Committee meeting. I will call this meeting to order for June 17th, 2024. It is just after 2 o'clock. If you would, I'd like to start off with a moment of silence. If you would, please remember this is the anniversary of the Emmanuel AME church shooting, as well as the Sofa Superstore fire, where we lost 9 of our firefighters. So please keep them in your prayers as well. If we would, please just take a moment of silence. Amen. Thank you. Okay, next on our agenda, we need an approval of the minutes from our May 15th, 2024 meeting.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Minutes have been approved. So next up, we have a presentation of the Charleston Police Department's response to the racial bias audit and third-party assessment. I'll call on Chief Walker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. Thank you for people that showed up in the audience, CPAC, Dr. Kell. We're going to be really brief, but this is a continuation of the assessment that we just had done a couple months ago. This is our response to be able to report out, but just keeping in mind where we stand. Public safety is still our #1 priority here with us. Don't matter what part of the community you live in, that's our #1 priority. This is a continuation of a lot of work that we've done since 2019. Okay, we plan on doing exactly what we said when we reported out the first time, that everything that Ms. Edson will report out on will be infused into the culture of our strategic plan moving forward. So with that, Dr. Edson is our primary point of contact with this assessment, and I will turn the floor over to her.
Thank you, gentlemen. And because I have papers, I think I'll sit here if you don't mind.
Very good.
And would you mind going to the first slide, please? This is somewhere in the middle. Farther, yeah. Thank you. Perfect, thank you. So thank you for having me. As Chief Walker reported, my name is Jill Idson. I'm the Director of Procedural Justice and Research at the Charleston Police Department. And so what I'm going to be doing, let me grab this clicker too. Thank you. What I'm going to be doing is walking you through the Charleston Police Department's assessment following the external review and assessment of its implementation of the racial bias audit recommendations from its work in 2019. So I'm going to start with some background just to orient everyone. This has been a long process just to make sure that everyone's clear on where we are in the process. Then I'm going to offer a high-level summary of some of the findings from the external review and assessment. Obviously, there's a lot of information in that report, so I would refer all people to that report, but I'm just going to give you an overall sense of what we focused on. Then I'm going to discuss our review process and our assessment of the ERA final report, and then I'll conclude with some next steps. So as you probably recall, in the city of Charleston and the Charleston Police Department embarked on a voluntary community-supported racial bias audit of the department's operations in 2019. And anyone that's interested can see the report that came out of that assessment using the QR code. And so the areas of focus that were part of this assessment were traffic stops, use of force, complaints, community-oriented policing, and personnel practices. Now, while there was disparity uncovered in outcomes for people, the report did not find that the CPD was biased. However, it did provide 72 recommendations to the department to implement to encourage best practices and to encourage it to continue to evolve and become one of the model police departments in the country. The final recommendation from that report encouraged the CPD to seek an outside assessment and monitoring of its evaluation on its implementation of the 72 recommendations. And so that process was completed in 2023 with support from City Council again. And we worked with a multidisciplinary team of researchers that came in and focused on how well the CPD implemented the recommendations. There were 3 components to that assessment, 3 main ones. One was a fidelity assessment that looked at how well the department worked on implementing the recommendations. That included a lot of interviews and document reviews. The second part was a subject matter expert review, and that included some disparity analysis of outcomes for members of the public. And then finally, there was a community engagement component. So, and also you can go back and see the recommendations from that report in its full length. And also there was a short report on the website that's 14 pages. And so again, a high level outcome of the ERA was that the ERA team found that the CPD made a good faith effort to implement the recommendations. Its findings indicated that of the 5 different areas, 54 of those recommendations, or 80.59%, had clear and complete documentation of implementation. A further 11, or 16.41%, had some documentation or additional or ongoing work that was suggested and required. And then also there were 2, or 2.98, with insufficient documentation of implementation. There were also 5 that were not rated for various reasons. CNA canceled one of them, and there were a few that, based on the unique context facing the department, were not feasible for them to implement, and thus they were not rated. So, and this is another high-level review of the other findings from the other components of the analysis. There were improvements in data collection and analysis capabilities that were noted. There were, again, racial disparities that were present in outcomes like motor vehicle stops and use of force. However, there were no demonstrable disparities found in the complaint process. As a positive note, community-oriented policing was found to be a central focus of the CPD. However, there were some wide variations in terms of perceptions of the CPD's direction, and also dissatisfaction in the community about the amount and transparency of community engagement. That report concluded with an additional 24 recommendations for the CPD to consider from the ERA team. So what we've done thus far since that report's release and presentation to the community in late January was the CPD has conducted a thorough review process of all the recommendations. So the 72 from the CNA audit, and then also the 24 from the ERA final report. The process involved getting feedback from department leadership and department commanders. Also me, in my position as the procedural justice and research director, I weighed in and kind of collated all of our information into one document. We also, throughout the process, considered comments that were made in various forums like our Citizens Police Advisory Council meetings and the attendees from the final report presentation to the community that took place in January of 2024. So we've developed, as we report out, a coding system of the CPD's final assessment of the status of the recommendations. Those that are complete, we're considering implemented. In progress items, we believe require additional work based on our assessment or based on assessment from the ERA report. And in these cases, work for implementation has been developed, is already in process, or is nearing completion. And then finally, we coded some of the recommendations other, given their unique context. For example, the ones that were canceled, the one that was canceled by CNA, those that were deemed feasible, unfeasible by either the ERA team or the CPD, or those that are funding dependent. And what we found, here's another chart that represents all 96 different recommendations from the different areas of focus. And so after reviewing the report, the CPD determined that a majority of the incomplete recommendations were feasible to implement or were already being addressed. We found that 59 of the total recommendations of the 96, or 61.5%, are complete or have been implemented. A further 30, or 31.3%, we are coding as in progress, meaning that there's ongoing work attached to that recommendation. And 7, again, have unique context, meaning that they were either deemed unfeasible or CNA canceled them, or they were funding dependent. So following the ERA process and our review, we will continue to work on those 30 recommendations that we're coding as ongoing. And the report that's being released today and will be available on the CPD's website will go into detail regarding all of our processes, our rationales, and our broad next steps. So, but just to give you a summary, so we have each CNA section of the in progress. So generally, for example, traffic stops, the CPD is committing to continue community collaboration. We have a new grant that we're leveraging from the BJA, which will improve our data capacity and our ability to engage the public around crime problems. We also commit to continuing training and refining our data collection systems where possible. For use of force, we'll continue reviewing policy-related training, and then as it's feasible, adjust our data collection and analysis processes. For community-oriented policing, a lot of our response, we will continue collaborating with our Citizen Police Advisory Council. And also, we will lean on our community-oriented policing division to continue outreach and collect feedback from the community. And finally, in personnel practices, we are planning on creating a training assessment process, including policy review. We have a forthcoming staffing assessment that will help us achieve some of those goals. And then we commit to developing new tracking mechanisms and forming new community partnerships. I will mention that there were no recommendation from the complaint section that we consider ongoing, as they were assessed as complete, or we assess them as funding dependent. And so now the next step, this is what we're proposing to do to basically continue our work on these 30 ongoing recommendations. So at this stage, we're reporting out about our assessment process and what we commit to do. The next stage is what we will be doing, as we've done before, is we will be folding these recommendations from this assessment into our forthcoming new strategic leadership plan. That was actually one of the recommendations from the ERA process, that we start that effort in 2024. And so we'll be, over the next months, we'll be meeting to internally review our previous strategic plan. We'll be incorporating the results from this assessment into our next steps. We'll also be looking at our data capacity and getting feedback from members of CPAC about how we can strengthen those data reports. And as determined, we will provide updates and regular feedback to you all and our CPAC on our process as we work through that. So basically, that is our commitment, that we will continue to basically work towards fully accomplishing those 30 recommendations, but it will now be under the cover of the strategic plan. And so all the reports thusly will be focused on improving the entire department and weaving these in where appropriate. And that's our brief summary of our process and our next steps.
Thank you, Dr. Edson. Chief Walker, any questions, committee members? Clerk, I guess, is there anything to vote on here, do you know? Or do we just, I guess we vote to accept this? I don't know. Right, I don't know. No need to vote? Okay, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Edson. Chief Walker, anything else before I move on?
No, sir. Just appreciate everybody. Like I say, this has been a long process, and making sure that not only this body, but the community knows this is not a check the box. We've been committed to this since we began, contrary to what some people say. We are a data-driven, evidence-based organization, and we take great pride in what we do, but we also service our entire community, no matter what background or where you stay, and we're committed to that. And we're going to continue pressing forward and progressing. So I appreciate your time. I really appreciate the support. So.
Well, thank you, Chief, and thank you to everyone who put in all the work in this over so many hours and a lot of concentration and work and time that you've pulled away from other things to make sure that this was complete. And it's very much appreciated. So thank you. All right, we will move on to our next item on the agenda. We have for the police department, approval to submit an application for the National Public Safety Partnership Capacity Building Grant in the amount of $438,433.08. This grant would fund mobile surveillance systems for gun violence investigations.
Move. Second.
Move to approve and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, next on the agenda, Police Department approval to submit an application for the Paul Coverdale Forensic Science Improvement Grant in the amount of $72,147.10. This grant would fund a mobile detection and documentation system for forensics evidence collection.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next, Police Department approval to accept an award for the Duke Energy Emergency Preparedness Storm Resiliency Grant in the amount of $20,000. Funds will be used to purchase a multiple event response trailer for road closures. Can I get a motion to
Move for
approve?
approval. Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Number 7, Police Department approval to accept an award for the SCDPS Body Armor Assistance Grant in the amount of $66,399. This grant will fund load-bearing vests for sworn personnel.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion on this item? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Also, Police Department, after the fact approval to submit a joint application with Clemson University for the NIJ Research and Evaluation of Policing Practices Partnership Grant. If awarded, the CPD will receive $10,000 to implement a new training model and collect data for evaluation.
Move for approval.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, we have appointment of John Robinson as the weekend holiday and bond court associate judge. Ms. Urdina, Judge Urdina, did you want to talk on this?
Chair, members of the committee, Mayor, John Robinson, for those of you who do not know John, but he has been chair of our BAR for a number of years. And this request is the last piece of our effort to have the bond court fully staffed and ready to move forward on July 1. We previously requested your approval to hire a bond court judge for the weekend. John has graciously agreed to fill this position with the mayor's recommendation. It's a part-time position. It will be weekends and holidays. And we're looking forward to hopefully getting this approval, and he'll be starting the first weekend in July. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from committee members? Can I?
Comment. I guess soon to be Judge Robinson, appreciate your willingness to serve, and sorry it'll be a little bit of a bummer July 4th for you, but we're glad you're willing to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. I appreciate the opportunity.
And again, I would just like to thank City Council again for all their quick support in getting us put this project together, and we're ready to move forward now, July 1st. Thank you very much for your support.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I get a motion, please?
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of appointing John Robinson, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And I just want to thank everybody for being here, all of our staff. I know it's summertime. I know that there's a lot going on out there right now, and I appreciate everybody taking the time to come down here to City Hall, find a parking spot, and be a part of this meeting. A lot of important things have happened in this meeting, and I certainly appreciate your time. Is there anything else to come before council, before this committee? If not, we stand adjourned.